Hello, ladies, gents, and others. This video is a reference video, one I will refer to when trying to explain the relationships, differences, and commonalities when it comes to things like belief, faith, knowledge, and truth. Now, to explain my take on this, I will use the help of a well-known example of a Gumball machine, like this one here. Popular when I was a kid, just a few years ago. Now, if I put this in front of you and ask, do you believe the number of gumballs in this machine is even or odd? What would be your answer? Now, let me point out two things just to clarify this. I am not asking how many balls there are inside the machine. And because the number here is either even or odd, there is no real halfway answer. Now, if you think about it, the only possible answer which remains neutral must be, I don't know. Because you have no information, no facts, and no data to indicate whether odd or even are more likely or more probable. So, that is the default position without any data. It's the only honest answer. I don't know. Now, someone comes up to you and says, I believe the number is even. Fair enough. The chances are 50-50 that he's right. But when you ask him why he believes the number is even, he says, a voice in his head sent a warm feeling to his heart when he thought of even, and this is convincing enough for him. What just happened? Let's see if we can break this down a bit. We have a belief which in itself has no evidence, but something convinced him of a choice, the even, which is substantiated by something that is neither verifiable nor is it falsifiable. It's only emotional and irrational belief. So you can hold a belief if you are convinced this is justified. And that, at the end of the day, is what a belief is. So if you choose to do so, you can test this personal belief. And now we realize there are different versions of this belief. Like when putting a coin into the machine and turning the handle to have a gumball pop out, you have a justified belief, as this happens over and over, and your expectation is that this will continue. If you argue that the gumball and your senses detecting the machine exist and are functioning, you have a basic or axiomatic belief, one which forms the basis of your thought processes here. I maintain that if you turn the handle over and over without inserting a coin and believe you will receive a gumball anyway at some stage, you're deluded. So we have different types of belief. If you now empty the machine somehow and actually count the gumballs one by one, you will arrive at a number, which will now enable someone to declare with knowledge, based on empirical evidence, whether the number is even or odd. So knowledge is a subset of belief based on experience and verifiable data, which can be compared to reality, which in turn forms what we call truth. So the initial belief is now tested and is verified or falsified, depending on what your belief was. The neutral or default position is now replaced with a definite position based on knowledge. Now, what this demonstrates is you don't have knowledge first, i.e. the real, actual number of gumballs. So before you formulate the belief, you don't have knowledge. I think this is very clear now. You first believe something and then you verify it or falsify it. So belief is merely something someone is convinced of, without evidence. If required, this belief can be tested or not. So someone can have a belief without ever verifying it. Because next we find that another form of belief is one where you can't verify or falsify whether what you are convinced of is true or not. And that is faith. For example, if I tell you about a gumball machine orbiting Jupiter, and you tell me the number of gumballs in the machine is even, this belief is irrational, based on absolutely nothing, just your imagination on emotions and wishful thinking. Because we can neither verify nor can we falsify your faith. And that, in my eyes, makes faith useless. So if someone comes to you and says the number of gumballs in the machine is even, based on their private belief, which is not based on experience, logical or empirical evidence, and in fact has no evidence whatsoever to substantiate that claim, what is your reaction? Do you believe them? And if yes, on what grounds? Or do you reject the claim and withhold judgment until you have better data? Which is more reasonable? Now, if you reject the claim that the number is even, and simply remain in your default, the neutral position, and say, I don't know, are you saying that something else is true? Or are you declaring a different belief? No. By rejecting the claim, you are doing only that. You are saying, I don't believe that. There is no reason to believe it. You are not automatically saying you believe something else. You are not automatically making another claim like odd is true or nobody will ever find out or anything of the sort. It is a passive, neutral position. No claim, no argument. And you don't need to provide any evidence for rejecting a claim made without evidence, because you can't prove someone claiming the number is even is wrong without actually verifying the contents, which, as we have seen, you can't always do. Now, something I want to point out, just as a matter of fact, is that counting is not the only way to establish a factual basis, obviously. Like, for example, you could weigh another machine which is empty, weigh the individual gumballs, and then compare that to the full machine and thus establish whether the number is odd or even. This means there are multiple paths with different data sets to establish facts and verifiable results here in the real world. And this then, well, this is truth, as we mentioned earlier. So true is anything which you can compare with reality or logics and which is then verified using knowledge. That's why truth is variable, depending on what the data is that is available to you. So people who, 5,000 years ago, said that Earth is flat were not really lying, as they were comparing this to their observation abilities and limited knowledge. And this, of course, is equally true for us today, so something we will have to talk about in another 5,000 years. And by the way, while we're talking about truth, something like a car, a crocodile, a handbag, or a book cannot be true or the truth. Only statements can be telling the truth if they are verified by comparing them to reality or using logics. So saying something like Islam is true or Islam is the truth is completely nonsensical. And finally, I want to point out that when you insert the coin into the slot, you're not actually paying for the chewing gum, but a turn of the handle, because you believe, justifiably so, that the turn of the handle will have a ball popping out of the chute, which is, as we said before, is a justified belief. And if it does not, and the possibility does exist, you have invested something in vain, just like people with a God belief don't actually believe a God exists, but that the story about a God, usually transmitted via a book, is true. Now, if we apply all of the above to gods now, we have the fact that either the one personal God a person has picked exists or does not exist. You can't have a theistic God existing a little or halfway. So a person who believes their God exists does so because they see reasons to do so and are convinced of their belief. And that's fine. I mean, I couldn't care less what someone believes as long as there are no negative consequences for others. Now, if this God can be detected and an interaction with our reality is demonstrable, we can measure this and it becomes knowledge. But so far there is no data, no facts, and no measurements. So this is impossible, and no God has ever manifested itself in the observable universe in any detectable manner. So this in turn means that we can't have knowledge regarding the existence of gods, neither for nor against. So there can be no knowledge claim regarding gods. It remains an untestable belief. If this belief can be neither verified nor falsified, it is faith, blind faith. And faith is pretty much useless for anything. Thanks for your time.